Hi, my name is Captain Logan with the Xbox Expansion Pass, and this is the review for The Outer Worlds 2. Thanks to Microsoft and Xbox for providing a review copy of this game. I've been playing on PC with a 4080 Super and an AMD Ryzen 9.
Commander, we've been hit by one of those space anomalies.
Buddy?
And the piloting system is down.
Buddy?
The astrogator's gears are shot!
Get a hold of yourself. You're an Earth Directorate agent.
Affirmative, Commander.
The Outer Worlds 2 starts off much like any other science fiction serial that you could imagine. You, as an agent of the Earth Directorate, are tasked on a mission that seems impossible as you head to a solar system called Arcadia under the protection and rule of the Protectorate. More on that later. To try and understand what is causing rifts in time and space as a result of the production and use of skip drives that allow ships to travel to and from space faster than light travel. This is where I was really kind of just enjoying the sense of Outer Worlds 2. Starting off with your debriefing, you're quickly pushed over to talk with Augustine de Vries. It's going to be a pretty significant character for the first part of this game, as she's already infiltrated the skip drive facilities and found herself one that we can then use to analyze and understand more about the rifts. That, in a nutshell, is going to be the bread and butter of the story for the Outer Worlds 2. Rifts are the new MacGuffin, and it's up to you to determine what's going on with them and how you're going to address that for the safety of the universe. At its core, The Outer Worlds 2 is an action role-playing game by Obsidian that does exactly what you want it to do. You yourself have a story that you must pass through, and the decisions and choices that you make will quickly impact what happens to the rest of the game. I really love the sense of finality with a lot of the things that you do, as later towards the end of the game, you could very easily wind up alone with no friends if you don't navigate relationships and reputations accurately. There's a good handful of locations for Outer Worlds 2, and I really appreciated how the game decides to start you off on a planet called Eden after the initial opening. Eden is a fantastic planet, and you quickly find yourself roaming all over the place to try and find all the little nooks and crannies for possible secrets, especially after playing other Obsidian titles like Grounded, Grounded 2, and Avowed. I was eager to try and find what other things were on this planet called Eden that has you on Paradise Island. I really appreciated, in this sense, very much like the first game where you first kind of get set up to go visit this kind of backwater town. Paradise Island really does kind of lend itself to going to one main hub and then kind of slowly taking you out as you went into different areas. Other areas in the world or on other planets have completely different biomes, but having this kind of lush green environment to start with is really beautiful. Obsidian has really stepped up their game when it comes to design and appearance. When it comes to the Outer Worlds, the Outer Worlds 1 was good, but it definitely left something to be desired when it came to graphics. The Outer Worlds 2 is beautiful. They've done a fantastic job really upping the quality of not only the characters, but the world and the environments that you traverse in. And even one of those situations where I think a lot of us have come to expect different kind of signifiers for areas of traversal. Most people usually see like yellow tarps or yellow paint. The Outer Worlds 2 does a good job of kind of pulling you to different areas and showing you where to go in a way that feels very, very natural. One of the interesting things about Outer Worlds in general is that the game appears to still be fully designed around the idea of being for people who have color blindness. Outer Worlds 1 is one of the few games I think I've ever played where the entire game can be played even if you're colorblind without having to worry about adjusting any settings. And this as well with the Outer Worlds 2 does a good job of building out the color palette so that folks who may run into instances where yellows and reds or greens and pinks tend to blend in, those are all kind of present in this design, and I really thought that they did a good job with that. The few things that I will say are troublesome with the traversal, even though you can actually play in first and third person, with the third person having kind of a pulled away look as well as just an over the shoulder design, is that you are going to run into situations where as you travel travel or run around, you run into these weird kind of hitches where it's not a graphical hitch, but you'll go into the water, and then if you go into the water just a little bit too much, it will actually kill you. Now, bear in mind, this is something that is just part of the main game before it actually gets released. This could be a change or a balance fix that they have, but at a certain point, if you go into too much water where you no longer are standing on the ground, you'll instantly die. And it's kind of a bummer for something like that. I kind of wish that they had taken a little bit of note from games like their other titles like Avowed to be able to give you that opportunity to go swim a little bit just to kind of get up back onto it instead of just instantly dying. One thing I did have to learn pretty quickly on is that NPCs are going to say stuff all the time. And if you're paying attention to what they're saying, you may realize that that is something that you should probably be aware of, as they are probably going to be a quest NPC. There's no little indicators above people's heads. Everything that you find as a quest is going to be you investigating what someone is saying as you run by. So definitely keep an ear out for when people are talking about something, because you will most likely be able to walk up to them and engage with them, and they will then give you a quest. And these side quests are going to be very important, especially as you get to and from different areas, as well as you walking around the world or just kind of experiencing things. It's good to try and get as many side quests as you can early on. Next, I wanted to talk about the combat and gunplay. Outer Worlds 1 historically has not been great when it comes to gunplay. The combat feels kind of sluggish at best. And I'm very happy to say that based on my experience with the Outer Worlds 1 and now having played through Outer Worlds 2, they have extremely upped their game when it comes to gunplay. I've been a long time Destiny 2 fan and have played multitude of like Halos and Call of Duties, stuff like that. And gunplay is very important, especially if that is your play style. And Outer Worlds 2 does a fantastic job. I've really loved the gunplay, especially with all the variety of weapons that you have access to. I have switched between just about every type of gun that they have. They all feel very good, and the animations are amazing. They've done a great job of kind of capturing what I appreciate about Bungie's Destiny 2 in this instance. The AI, on the other hand, does still leave something to be desired. In combat, it was common for me to be able to use angles and corners, rooms to be able to keep enemies from progressing or advancing on me, and I was able to kind of pot shot them. There was a little bit of design around them using cover, but cover is actually something that's destructible in Outer Worlds 2, which I do appreciate, because if there is an enemy that is hiding up high somewhere behind something that you can't, you're just waiting for them to peek out, you can actually shoot it. In some of the cases, you can actually destroy that cover so that you can actually get better access to them. Once you're done killing and maiming everything around you, because that's just the type of character that I play, I went around and grabbed as much as I could, as looting and gathering stuff in Outer Worlds and RPGs in general tends to be the main thing. And this is the first time that I've played an Obsidian game where I've actually enjoyed the fact that there is no encumbrance. In many RPGs, especially in the style of Obsidian games as well as Bethesda, you always have to battle against encumbrance, how much you're weighing and how much is in your inventory compared to where you're at and how long you're able to kind of stay out. With the removal of encumbrance, I have loved being able to stay out for long stints working on quests, exploring different areas, and not having to think about finding a vendor, fast traveling before I get overladen with any kind of treasure or armor, guns, things like that. It's been a fantastic change, and I think that that's a system that they should absolutely keep as they move forward into other titles. The story is interesting with this. I won't go into too much as a result of spoilers, but I will say that there are reputations once again in the Outer Worlds series. Anti's Choice is now the new Spacers led by Anti, and is the poster child for late stage capitalism in a satirical means that really is just beautiful. And the Order of the Ascendant is a sect with a large populace that is set on the ascension of mankind through math. It is a group that is so religious about math, being able to solve anything, and has titles within the organization called seers. We're able to provide predictions on the future based on analytics instead of receiving a sign from a higher power. Yes, math pun is intended. They're all about that. Other reputations like the Protectorate are the sovereign state, with their citizens being so obedient and loyal that any free thoughts are wiped through the process of mental refreshment, a literal brain wiping science that is employed to keep people free of having to ask questions and just obey. The reputation system here is available, and depending on how you play, you can run down the middle of all of them or pick a side and stick to it. Most of the quests I did helped push my reputations into the positive area, but none of them felt like I was making much progress, leaving me wondering what the benefit of them is outside of not getting shot on sight. Only one reputation in my playthrough offered any perk, which was a 5% discount in vendor prices for that reputation, while scum saving allowed me to find out that if you murder enough people in a safe zone for a reputation, you can drop to the bottom of their reputation list very quickly, pinning you as an outlaw unless you pay the bounty on your head. So far, the tug of war between the Protectorate and Auntie's Choice and the Order is fantastic. I'm once again left trying to balance what I want to get done with what I think will give me the best rewards. I've spent quite a bit of time playing both sides, and it's worked out well for the most part. The characters and overall plot are fantastic, though. I will say that Obsidian once again has done a fantastic job with the writing and even just the little bits of information, kind of the flavor text on just about everything. At one point you gain a gadget amongst others that allows you to inspect people or see them through walls, which will give you information about their armor class, health, damage, and maybe a little bit of information about the type of person that they are, like someone who happens to shake all the fizzy drinks in the refrigerator in the break room, and others who like to have a promotion but for whatever reason are not going to get that promotion. Which brings me to the companions. Much like the first game, The Outer Worlds 2 relies on playing the game with your crew. You start off with a couple of people and expand to a good swath of personalities as you go. I was genuinely surprised with each companion I took on, not expecting them to be someone to join my crew. There was one companion I was unable to recruit, leaving me curious to know what I did wrong. Each companion tends to come from a different background, which will play into who you take with you on your quests. It is an aspect that makes sense in practice, but it left me having to leave certain companions behind due to their personality or affiliation. Each companion does have combat abilities, and in this case are going to be very much dependent on how you play the game. I definitely appreciate how each companion covers different styles of gameplay, and they did a fantastic job offering me party members that will either stay with me so I can snipe out an area before an approach, or take the hits and let me do the shooting. How well do the combat companions do in combat though? Well, a lot of that is going to depend on who you bring and how they pair up with what you do. Taking a melee assassin when you have no one to draw the enemy's attention will put them in dangerous positions often and leave them to be the first one to get knocked down. I tend to play ranged and use angles to break line of sight during fights, so a lot of the time anyone melee would charge in and get knocked down before we really got to clear out an area. As far as when to attack, as long as an enemy can shoot you, they will fire back when you're not hiding. I really enjoyed having them along, as I think the commentary and the character depth was an overall add to the game. Getting into the RPG elements, this game is all about levels, traits, flaws, skills, perks, you name it. And in this case, levels in the early half of the game came very slowly. I felt like I was killing anything and everything that would harm my wouldn't harm my reputation, to get that sweet XP. By the last half, I was able to complete a level after a major story quest and almost capped out at the end of the game. Having to skip a lot of the companion side quests I wanted to due to time was a regrettable decision, but I needed to make sure that I had seen the end of the game for this review. I will hopefully get a chance to go back and actually work through a lot of those companion side quests, as I do want to see how their stories ended up at the end of the game. The balance here I think could be better, and I think a lot of the trouble of being too powerful at the beginning could be the reason for the design, but feeling a desire to get 2 more points in lockpicking just to open a room and see what's inside was not enjoyable at the start. Traits are a good way to progress in the game that normally would have been done through skills, as you can shortcut them as a result. And there are some good ones, and I decided to take dumb, which I thought would be the funniest trait, which ended up locking out 5 of the 12 skills available to me, at which point I realized this is going to be difficult, as some things that I would be able to do, like hacking or engineering, came at a cost. As a result though, I did find that the dialogue options were hilarious, and I enjoyed the fact that every once in a while I was just so dumb that I didn't know better and did something that for all intents purposes would have killed me if not for taking another trait, which was lucky, which not only gave me 5% crit chance, but sometimes things just worked out, and I appreciated that. Flaws are another thing that is really important to Obsidian and the Outer Worlds in general. Flaws come and go as you play the game, and while some did show up more than once, these epochs in your playthrough will be triggered when the game notices a trend. These flaws are the cursed monkey's paw in the game that will have you trade off a positive for a negative. One that I triggered early on was my tendency to reload a gun clip before the clip was empty. The flaw popped up as overprepared and gave me the option to increase my magazine size at the cost of 40% damage if I let the weapon magazine hit empty for the next 8 seconds. So I'd either have to wait out the debuff or I would end up reloading at 1 bullet. Others like Treacherous take away base HP for increased sneak attack damage, or Consumerism, which lowers vendor prices but also lowers the sell value at vendors. And depending on your playstyle, these flaws can be very beneficial, but there were definitely a fair few that weren't worth the penalty and I ended up ignoring. I think one of the big perks to games like Outer Worlds and Avowed are the skills and perks systems. These allow you to get incremental increases in the actual game that are significant. And one of the few things that I did appreciate was the jump, or at least the perceived increase in power every time I got a level and I was able to get some new skills. The perk system itself is nice, as more will open up depending on how many points you dump into different skills, and a lot of the skills are what you would come to expect. So if you are looking to develop your character more in gunplay, you could dump points into guns, but if you were more of a sneaky person, then you could dump points into there, and that would increase your sneak attack damage or reduce the amount of awareness that NPCs have. Others like engineering will give you the ability to access different areas, whereas science will increase the amount of gadget energy that you have to be able to use different gadgets, which for all intents and purposes, the gadgets that you get are amazing. And I really do love the ability to use different ones that you get throughout the game that, as I was about to actually explain, would be a bit of a spoiler. So I'll hold off on those, but just to say that the gadgets are really awesome. You should absolutely utilize them to the best of your ability whenever you can, especially depending on your gameplay style. They are going to be integral to how you actually achieve different objectives. While I think things like the skills, perks, armor, and weapons did really, really well in this game, there are still some things that I thought fell flat. One of the ones that I want to call out is actually a secrets kind of thing with trading cards. Trading cards in the game are little things that you'll find scattered throughout the world. And as you find most of these, they will add small kind of bonuses to your character's stats, whether it be more HP or increased gadget energy, critical strike chance, things like that are all going to be all tied to these different little cards. And while I appreciate that they had something like this just to kind of have in the game, it really didn't feel interesting. And at the same point, having one to be able to give me 1% chance at critical strikes, or a 1% toxicity crash threshold, which is the debuff that you'll earn every time you use an inhaler to heal yourself. All of these are interesting, but at the end of the day, I appreciate that they're in there, but have no relevance to the game and really did not feel impactful in the slightest. The companion system I thought was really well thought out as far as the skills and perks as well. With each character, you'll have the ability to upgrade them twice depending on the quests that you do, and they will level with you as you progress and open up perk points to be able to spend to augment their abilities, especially their combat abilities. You get one every 5 levels up to the max level, and I really liked the fact that they added this. It keeps the system simple while also kind of changing things up for your playstyle, as opposed to not having any kind of change at all. The only thing I wish I could do is have a way to go back and actually reset or respec my companions depending on how I change my playstyle throughout the game, as I did end up switching how I played the game towards the later half just due to the number of enemies. All in all, what I will say about this game is that it is a damn fine game, and most definitely one of the best games that Obsidian has made. They've taken a lot of lessons from Outer Worlds 1 and have really strived to make this a fantastic experience. I think by the end of the time that I had with the game before this review, I clocked in somewhere close to 55 to 60 hours, and I had to skip a lot of content to be able to mainline the quests to be able to see the end credits. I really wanted to spend more time in this world, and I have to say that if you wanted to, it would be easily up there in the 70 to 80 hour range, depending on how long you take for the different quests or how much depth you want to put into planning out your skills, perks, weapon sets, and just reputations in general, as there was a lot that had to do with one of the types of reputations that allows kind of free market gameplay, taking up bounties and random quests that I really didn't engage with just due to time. So I really would recommend folks, if you're looking for an RPG and you're looking for one that you can really chew on for a while, definitely give the Outer Worlds 2 a chance. It's a fantastic one to jump into. And I will say that if you're wondering if you need to go and actually play the Outer Worlds 1, I would say no. The story and characters all feel new and unique. It takes place in a new setting, so you really don't have to worry too much about knowing anything that happened in the first game. As in my playthrough, I actually ended the game the same way I ended the first game, and that is something that I will not spoil here, but was very funny to me when I got done with the game and I was like, oh, I did it again. I don't know that I meant to do it again, but I sure as heck did it again. So I really love this game. I think everyone should definitely give it a chance. There's still some lessons to be learned, I think, for Obsidian to go into the next iteration of the Outer Worlds, but for all intents and purposes, a lot of the issues that I had with the first game are completely rectified in the second, and I just wish I had more time to kind of chew on a lot of the other systems and maybe go into a playthrough again and actually pick and choose things, knowing now what I know on how to build a character. So definitely give the Outer Worlds 2 a chance. I know it's available on Game Pass Ultimate, and I would recommend it even at the reduced cost at $70. So please definitely give Obsidian their time. They're a fabulous developer, and I've really loved all of the games that they've done so far. I'm looking forward to seeing what they do in the future if they decide to continue with the Outer Worlds universe. Yeah, universe.